Hi, my name is Ailey, and I'll be sharing my survey results from my research study at the University of Washington. Every day, crosswalks are used by a number of pedestrians countless times a day, especially in the University District. Pedestrians must share crosswalks with other road users, such as bicyclists, drivers of motor vehicles, skateboarders, and so on. Being a more vulnerable group, I wanted to learn about pedestrian crosswalk use and how crosswalks might be improved to provide pedestrians with the safest and most comfortable experience possible. I designed my survey to validate motorist behaviors that make pedestrians feel uncomfortable, elaborate on how pedestrians make themselves visible to oncoming traffic, and explore what makes pedestrians feel unsafe at a crosswalk. My survey study is informed by previous research on the subject, including a field study and an interview study. Some themes from the field and interviews to be further investigated in the survey study include visibility of pedestrians, motorist behaviors that make pedestrians feel uncomfortable, and unsafe experiences at crosswalks. I used Google Forms to create my surveys because it accommodated a variety of question types and could be easily administered. My participants consisted of 28 college students who primarily get around on foot because they have the most experience using crosswalks. I posted my survey to the UW Textbook Exchange and HCDE Peeps groups on Facebook because it was an easy way to get my survey out to a large number of people. It is important to note that the results of this study are not statistically significant due to its small sample size. My first finding was able to confirm motorist behaviors that make pedestrians feel uncomfortable when crossing, identified in the interviews, which include vehicles rapidly approaching the crosswalk, delayed braking of motorists, motorists at an incomplete stop at the crosswalk, and motorists stopped in the crosswalk. Participants ranked each behavior from 1 to 5, 1 making them the least uncomfortable and 5 making them the most uncomfortable. An average rank for each behavior was then calculated. Averages ranked from 3.8 to 2. According to this data, rapid approach of vehicles make pedestrians feel the most uncomfortable, with an average rank of 3.8. The frequency of which pedestrians experience these behaviors was also ranked and evaluated. 1 being they rarely experience these behaviors, and 5 being they always experience these behaviors. The frequency of each behavior was also averaged and presented a small range of 2.8 to 1.9. Meaning pedestrians experience all of these behaviors, sometimes to often. I would hope that pedestrians experience behaviors that make them feel more uncomfortable less often, but that is not necessarily the case for this data set. I wonder how the data would differ if taken to a larger sample size. To address motorists rapidly approaching a crosswalk, I recommend speed bumps in advance of the crosswalk. This will provide drivers with a tactile reminder to slow down and stop. Additionally, the frequency of cars stopped in the crosswalk could potentially decrease because even if a driver were to stop over the bump, they would still be outside of the crosswalk due to the advanced placement of the bump. Better communication between drivers and pedestrians could improve their sense of safety and comfort. Therefore, I recommend the implementation of brake lights on the front of cars so pedestrians can easily determine when they're slowing down. I also suggest a button be placed on the steering wheel, which drivers will press when they see pedestrians, which will surround the front brake lights with white lights to inform the pedestrians that they see them. The second finding validates a finding I observed in the field, which is that pedestrians do not think much about their visibility to oncoming traffic. I asked participants to select all of the visibility strategies applicable to them. 20 participants selected that they do not do anything special to ensure their visibility when crossing the street. Only 3 participants selected more than one visibility strategy. This is a concerning finding because drivers and other road users can't stop for someone they can't see. If this question were to be presented to a larger sample size, I would predict a similar outcome. Based on this data, I infer that their personal visibility is not a significant contributing factor to a safe and comfortable crossing experience, and that most pedestrians rely on the built environment surrounding the crosswalk to make them visible to oncoming traffic. To help pedestrians become more visible to oncoming traffic, I recommend adding reflective elements to things they usually have with them when crossing the street, so they don't have to think about it. Items could include backpacks, outerwear, umbrellas, water bottles, and lanyards. I saw a number of pedestrians carrying these items during my field study. Pedestrian visibility could be an interesting design requirement in a number of product design spaces. When asked if they have ever felt unsafe at a crosswalk, 21 of 28 participants responded yes. Clearly, crosswalks have room for improvement. Pedestrians should not feel unsafe in their designated crossing areas. Participants who responded yes were then able to describe what made them feel unsafe and provide some context. Many of the responses included experiences expressed in the interviews, such as cars turning, inadequate time to cross, and poor placement of crosswalks in blind corners. However, two themes were identified via thematic analysis causing this lack of perception of safety, which are insufficient stopping cues for cars and visual obstructions. Although there is a crosswalk, there is not a stop sign or stoplight to direct traffic, so cars rarely stop, forcing pedestrians to make the best run for it. Participants also expressed how parked cars and trees can get in the way of their view of traffic as well as traffic's view of them. To improve the safety aspects of the crosswalk, I propose a pressure-sensored system. On either side of the street, there will be a button for pedestrians to press, which will activate the pressure sensors and lights embedded in the crosswalk. The road surrounding the crosswalk will have two checkpoints. The first detects whether or not there is oncoming traffic in the surrounding area. The second indicates where the traffic should stop. When the button is pressed by the pedestrian, the lights on the crosswalk turn on and will be orange if traffic is detected by the first checkpoint. The lights alert traffic that pedestrians are at the crosswalk. The lights turn green to indicate when it is safe for pedestrians to cross when the second checkpoint senses that the car is at a stop. The lights turn off to signal to drivers that there are no pedestrians in the crosswalk after they have crossed the street safely. Looking ahead, if I were to continue with this study, I would want to broaden its scope. I would explore extreme user groups such as children and the elderly because I am sure their needs and wants are different than that of a college-age demographic that generally consists of young, able-bodied people. I would also want to include other road users to learn about their thoughts and feelings surrounding this topic. Crosswalks are used by many modes of transportation, and each user group has an effect on the other. It will be necessary to know the position of each group in the scheme of things to design a crosswalk experience that works for all. Looking back on my survey study, if I could do something differently, I would include a more diverse group of participants. I would stick with the college theme, but expand to include participants attending different universities. Some important limitations to note is the fact that none of these findings are statistically significant due to the small sample size and the narrow scope of this study, because it only applies to crosswalks and pedestrians in the university district. The hardest part of this study was coming up with survey questions and formatting them in a way that would return data that would answer my research questions. It was surprising to learn other strategies pedestrians employ to make themselves visible to oncoming traffic, like making eye contact with drivers. The best part of this survey was reading the responses to open-ended questions and finding that I could relate to some of their experiences as well. Thank you for listening, and I hope to bring you an improved crosswalk experience in the near future.